If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A. Given the number of attendees, we may not be able to respond to each individual question, but my colleagues will be reviewing the questions and replying in the Q&A, as well as posing questions to the panelists for a wider discussion. My colleagues will also be sharing relevant links in the chat. And lastly, if you'd like to maintain anonymity in the list of attendees, please feel free to change your name to a pseudonym. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe and comfortable. So today we have the pleasure of hearing from 3 scholars who were previously supported by Scholars at Risk. They'll be talking about their experiences navigating new academic spaces in the United States and Canada, with a focus on research, teaching, and applying for independent jobs. We know that relocating to a new country and continuing one's career in academia is challenging, and that it is only compounded when you have to relocate due to personal risk. And while each individual experience of seeking new academic employment is unique, we wanted to take the opportunity to hear from 3 scholars who have had success securing their own positions. They'll be discussing what has helped, what hurdles they faced, and how they overcame them. We also know that speaking about teaching, research, and applications does not encapsulate the whole picture of what it takes to secure a new position. However, we hope that each of the scholars' experiences resonate and that the advice that they share can be helpful as you all continue to explore the best options professionally and personally. Today, we will not be discussing specific opportunities through the SAR network, nor will we be responding to questions about individual cases out of concern for security and anonymity. However, if you are interested in seeking opportunities through the network, you can find information about our application and eligibility criteria on our website, and we'll share some links in the chat. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We'll hear from each of them individually, then they'll have the opportunity to be in discussion, and we'll have time at the end of the webinar to respond to questions. Dr. Hande Gürses, originally from Istanbul, is a displaced scholar of comparative literature. She holds a PhD in literary studies from University College London. Her primary research interests include contemporary world literature, refugee studies, cosmopolitanism, eco-criticism, and critical animal studies. She is also interested in inclusive pedagogies and contemplative practices in higher education. She taught courses on international short story, migration, dystopian literatures, and eco-criticism. She co-edited a volume on eco-critical approaches to contemporary Turkish literature titled Animals, Plants, and Landscapes, an ecology of Turkish literature and film from Routledge Press in 2019. And she is the author of Displacing Fictions of Orhan Pamuk, Beyond the Bridge, published just the end of 2023 by Lexington Books. In her book, she focuses on the imagery of the bridge and the construction and representation of distinct identity categories in Pamuk's oeuvre. She held positions at UMass Amherst, University of Toronto, Toronto Metropolitan University, and Simon Fraser University. She currently is teaching at Capilano University in North Vancouver. Dr. Wasim Iqbal is a seasoned water resources management and engineering professional with over 10 years of experience. Specializing in water-related disasters, hydrologic and watershed modeling, water resources allocation, and socioeconomic development, he has significantly contributed to both academic and practical aspects of water management. Currently an assistant research professor at Arizona State University, Iqbal collaborates with interdisciplinary teams, previously serving as the director of Afghanistan National Water and Environmental Research Center in Kabul. He played a pivotal role in shaping national water policies and securing major research funding. After the political regime shift in Afghanistan, Iqbal transitioned to the United States, continuing his professional endeavors with support from the Scholars at Risk Network. He has held positions as an assistant/associate professor at Herat and Kardan University, Kabul, and has engaged in research with international institutions like the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, University of Central Asia, Oxford Policy Management, and Kasset Sart University. With numerous published and submitted journal articles, Iqbal is skilled in hydrologic modeling, remote sensing, and machine learning applications in water resources. Holding a PhD in water engineering and management, he demonstrates a steadfast commitment to advancing his field. And last but not least, Dr. Solomon Lemma currently serves as a teaching faculty at Dallas College in Dallas, Texas, where he has been teaching federal government and Texas government courses since October 2023. Dr. Lemma was an Edward F. Arnold Visiting Associate Professor at Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington, before he joined Dallas College. Dr. Lemma has also held various academic and administrative positions at Northwestern University, the UIC John Marshall Law School, and Addis Ababa University. Dr. Lemma holds a PhD from the University of Warwick, an LLM from the University of Washington, another LLM from Erasmus University, and an LLB with distinction from Addis Ababa University. Dr. Lemma has studied and taught federal and state governments, politics, and constitutions at advanced levels in the US, the UK, continental Europe, and Africa. Thank you all for being here. Dr. Lemma, perhaps we can begin with you. You're on mute right now.
So thank you very much for that generous introduction, Sarina. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you have joined this webinar from. Let me begin by thanking you for inviting me to share my experience navigating new academic space here in the US. My name is Salman Lemma. I'm currently serving as a teaching faculty at Dallas College here in Dallas, Texas. Before joining Dallas College, I served as an associate professor at Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington State. I have also earlier served in various academic positions at Northwestern University and the University of Illinois, John Marshall Law School in Chicago, Illinois. I was a professor of law and dean of the College of Law and Governance Studies at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia before I came to the US. I hold a PhD from the University of Warwick in England, an LLM from Erasmus University School of Law in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and an LLB with distinction from Addis Ababa University School of Law in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I also have another LLM, which is a master's degree for the practice of law from the University of Washington School of Law in Seattle, Washington State. I am currently completing preparations to start private practice of law alongside my career in academia. So I'm going ahead and talk about my specific experience, particularly the advantage I had in navigating this new academic space in the US and the disadvantage, the challenges that I encountered in doing so. And I will proceed to talking about some general preparations for the participants of this webinar to take note of, right, in navigating this space as well, right? Let me begin with the advantage. One of the advantages I had was prior experience working with US universities. Before I moved to the US, I had, the privilege of working with Northwestern University and Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah in particular. The other advantage I had was network, right? I had this existing network before I came here, which I capitalized on to the most possible extent. I was fortunate enough to have a network of friends actively employed as professors or retired from US universities. The importance of, by the way, having a network of professors, active, retired, semi-retired, cannot be overstated. Being referred or vouched for by professors working at US universities is vital in securing a faculty job at a higher education institution in the US. The other advantage that I had was a PhD from England. There is, by the way, a very strong academic nationalism prevalent at US universities, which means that they almost invariably favor an American PhD than a foreign PhD. It is significantly difficult to land a faculty position at US universities without a PhD or with a PhD earned from a foreign university. Fortunately, these academic nationalists and Eurocentric higher education administrators are considered a PhD earned from England as acceptable. The other advantage is I had prior teaching experience, or more broadly, experience working at higher education institutions as a professor, researcher, or in any other as an assistant, or in any other position. Last but not least, I had the support of great institutions like Scholars at Risk. Support from these institutions will compensate for the lack of US-based network or experience. It is the support that I received from Scholars at Risk, in particular, that enabled me to secure the position I held at Whitman College. So this is by way of the advantages, that helped me, navigate this experience with this. There are also considerable disadvantages, right? And I'm going to discuss this disadvantage briefly. The first is I was overqualified, right? You need to be people need to be very careful in terms of stating their experiences in particular. There is some undesirable thing known as overqualification in the US job market in general and in the academia in particular. 2 or 3 years of prior experience is an asset, a prior experience of more than 10 years could be a liability. In general, unless you have established yourself as a distinguished scholar in your field or a famed expert in your industry, age could be a liability in the US job market. American employers in general and higher education administrators in particular want to hire younger candidates with experience just enough to do the job, but they would like to pay less and to have them for as long as possible. The older a candidate is, the more expensive they will be. The other is the type of PhD or the type of PhD you have or the type of field you specialize in, right? Assuming all PhDs are of equal value is one of the common mistakes that people commit, right? Nothing is further from the truth. I have a PhD in law, and that was a big disadvantage. Having a PhD in humanities in law is, a serious disadvantage. STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is much better. Even within that STEM field, PhD such as a PhD in computer engineering in IT is in high demand. So there is this discrepancy, this difference between what type of specialization you have, your background, and the field in which you like to work, right? For example, if you have a PhD in history or in German, or that will be that will make it a little bit difficult to succeed in the US academic job market, right? Here are the other observations that I have made, right? In higher education in the United States, money is everything. As is the case in many things in life in the US, money is everything in higher education institutions. The trend is to hire non-tenured professors, adjunct faculty, and affiliate instructors and lecturers that are much cheaper to hire and are offered contracts just for an academic year or a semester. Studies suggest that more than 60% of the academic workforce at US universities is made up of non-tenured professors, adjunct faculty, and affiliate instructors and lecturers. These are comparatively easier to land, these jobs, but they are non-secure, right? Job security is very hard to come by, right? So that leads us to another issue, which is about student evaluation, right? Student evaluation of your performance. Student evaluation matters a lot. The fact that money is an important factor in higher education institutions in the US means that having good student evaluation is critical in securing and maintaining an academic position. As they say, the student is the king. Make sure to treat and grade your students well, right? You will need good student evaluation badly in your academic life. The other is knowing your weakness. If you are not native-born American, you probably have an accent. Having an accent is a huge liability in what I consider to be arrogant and nationalist US academic job market. As if that's not bad enough, even after securing an academic position, your accent will be a huge factor in the course of performing your job. There is a large number of students, faculty, and staff at US higher education institutions that equate having an accent with the lack of competence. So you remind yourself that you have an accent because you are able to speak more than one language, unlike many of your US counterparts. And studies suggest that multilingual people are smarter than monolingual. So this should be kept in mind, and you need to strategize to make up for the accent you may have, and the implications that it will have, right? One of the things that you may do, for example, is using teaching aids, right? Working harder than your counterparts, right? Maintaining constant communication with your students, being very interactive as possible particularly with students. Above all, using teaching aids, using PowerPoint lecture slides, for example, video lessons, and writing with the black or whiteboard as much as possible to make up for the accent issue. the other is, never giving up, right? You need to send applications to as many places as possible, and you should not be discouraged if you are not selected for that position. Schools, by the way, U.S. schools do not judge purely on merit, purely on experience, right? So they have their own different criteria, and some of them are very hard to understand, right? So never give up, right? Try, and you will finally succeed. One more thing that I would like to share is the importance of having a backup plan. Once people, for example, get a position with the support of the Scholar at Risk Network, uh, uh, you know, side by side with applying for a more permanent academic position, getting themselves a side gig or an additional job will help a lot. For example, I had to work survival jobs, including serving as a translator and an advisor for institutions working on asylum and immigration issues in between my academic states. Considering getting a qualification in IT, for example, or in health sciences, will help a lot, right? Particularly in terms of securing job security, right? I mean, feeling insecure in your job is very stressful. In general, these days in the US, academic job is not something to rely on for eternity. As I said earlier, it depends on enrollment, right, semester by semester. And studies suggest that particularly this traditional four-year college are experiencing a dip in enrollment. Generally, how hard is it for anyone to get a job as as a faculty at a U.S. university? It is hard. A professor with a permanent position, a tenure professor, even harder. Okay. As I said earlier, it's about calculating the cost. College are money oriented, right? Unlike universities and college in other parts of the world, which derive their funding from other sources such as government coffers, right? Today, most teaching positions, as I said earlier, in the US are temporary or filled by contingent faculty, such as affiliate instructors and so and the upside is the silver lining is these are easier to get, and one can take their career from there. Okay, so that should be borne in mind, right? In summary, finding a teaching job can depend on the field, location, and level of the position sought, right? In general, the job market for teaching positions is competitive, especially, as I said earlier, at established higher education institutions. Factors such as the demand of specific disciplines, for example, disciplines in STEM, are more in demand than in humanities or law, which are, I mean, not that there aren't positions in those positions, but there are more applicants in those positions because Americans tend to apply to specialize in those positions themselves, right? So those are some of the experience that I would like to share. But now let me go ahead and talk about some general stuff if I have time. What should we do? What should a person
Can I interrupt you quickly, Solomon? Because I think we'll have an opportunity for that after everyone presents. I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share. A few things that I heard in your comments, though, were the value of networking. You mentioned knowing your weakness, but perhaps it's about sort of reframing things that others may perceive as weaknesses as strengths and a value add to universities that others don't have. Of course, using teaching aids and understanding the student evaluation process, which I think is something that is challenging for all, but it comes up a lot with scholars that we work with. I'd be curious to hear from Hande and Iqbal about any challenges or lessons learned that you have from navigating new teaching experiences in the US and Canada. And because we are represented by scholars in the social sciences, humanities, and hard sciences, I'm curious if you have the same feeling that it may be harder for scholars in the humanities and law than it is for those in science, or if it's more yeah, I guess I'll pause there.
I can go ahead. One resource I would like to add to the challenges or to overcome the challenges for teaching struggles, I would say institutions usually have a teaching center, teaching excellence center. So for me, that was a wonderful resource when I first arrived in North America. And I was quickly supported in terms of how to navigate the student body, the different tools that were available. So I think making use of the resources available on campus is a good way to navigate the initial differences between different pedagogies. Yeah, Iqbal, do you?
Thank you all. Actually, as I am in the field of engineering, so I don't feel like these challenges. So in the engineering field, you need to learn like more practical skills like models and engineering software. So by learning these techniques, you will have the chance like to be involved in academic job faster.
Great. All right, and Solomon, I didn't mean to cut you off. If there were some additional comments that you wanted to share, I think we have a few minutes and then we can.
I mean, I was going to wrap it up, right? So I can do that later when questions are raised, you know. So it's good. Let's go ahead and hear from other colleagues, and then you know, if there is anything that I should add, I'll do that in the course of the Q&A session. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. And we are getting lots of questions in the Q&A, so we'll have plenty to discuss afterwards. So perhaps now we can hear from Iqbal about your experience and specifically a little bit more about the research landscape.
Thank you, Ms. Sarina, and thank you, all colleagues. I'm Wasim Iqbal, an assistant research professor at Arizona State University. Previously, I was a university professor and researcher in Afghanistan universities. So today I would like to share some of the lessons I learned from this transitioning coming from the Afghanistan universities into the US universities. But before I start my speech, I would like to highlight three key important issues that I feel that are very beneficial for the young researchers. First is that the faster you understand the challenges and the opportunities that we are discussing today, the quicker like you can write better proposal, you can find better jobs, and you can publish the result of your studies in better portals and journals. The second important issue that I would like to highlight is that academic system and academic like job in North America is not similar with those, countries that we are coming from. I mean, specifically, I can tell you that in Afghanistan and some other Central Asian countries that I work with them, so they are not same. So you need to think about this, and you need to consider it very seriously. And the third, an important thing that I'm very happy that SAR provided this webinar today, because while we came here, the environment was very complicated. We faced so many challenges. So I had to attend so many workshops, reading so many documents, watching so many videos to get familiar with these things. But I'm happy that the young researchers can get benefit from this webinar today. In this webinar, I would like to concentrate on the lessons I learned, the challenges, the opportunities, and I would also tell you how you can find the sources, the research grant sources to apply, and how to write a good research grant proposal that give you the chance that you can secure your job, and even you can find a better job in US university. So I will come one by one. The first lesson I learned is I feel that the necessity of learning practical skills. While I came here as a professional water engineer, I feel that I need to improve my skill in machine learning techniques and remote sensing. I don't know in the other field of studies like in social science what skills are needed, but I feel in engineering these two are needed. So I took so many courses from ASU, from other universities, and also from the Upworthy Global. Upworthy Global is kind of portal that provide you lots of good, certificate courses. So after I learned machine learning and remote sensing, this helped me to find a better job with a better salary. Now, so I could easily find a job by learning these techniques. By learning these techniques, I could write a better proposal. So, and also these techniques helped me that I found that many PIs, principal investigators, they are more interested now in me to be a part of their research team. So learning new skills are very important. Another interesting thing is, the lesson that I learned, that there are abundance of research funding opportunities in the USA. So, so unlike like our own countries, like in the USA, government provide ample research fundings. I already provided the sources of this funding to SAR colleagues. They will share with you how you can have access to these sources. The third lesson I learned is that there are a number of workshops in any North American university. In these workshops, they try to provide you funding guidance. They would like that you get fund. When you get fund, you will have a secure job and you can find even a better job in the US job market. So these workshops, I already provided the links. I tried to provide the links that don't need that you have affiliation of any university. You can easily go through these links and you can have access to all these documents. In these workshops, you will learn research landscape and strategy, finding funding opportunities. I will later come which funding sources better to navigate. Learning lessons from first generation researchers. So effective messaging before writing a proposal. This is very important. Before you write a proposal, you need to communicate your idea with a funding source, and you should know how to communicate this idea before you change this a proposal. Editing your proposal, you should not submit directly your proposal. So it will tell you how you can edit. Fortunately, in the North American universities, there are research development departments. They provide you this kind of services. Proposal layout and graphics, so, and budgeting for proposal. And the last part, how to create finally a proposal. How to create a proposal from beginning to the end. I provided the link. The SAR colleague will also share with you what things should be considered. We have a very limited time. I cannot tell you how you can do that, but fortunately, there are a number of documents and videos that you can use this. The fourth lesson that I learned, that to secure your job and getting a better job into the US universities, you need to have at least one fund. Per year or once per 2 years. So this will help you even to apply for better jobs. The fifth lesson that I learned is you have ability to hire your staff while you get your fund. What it means? It means that unlike writing a manuscript, a book, an article, your hand is more open to consider so many things into your proposal. It means you should be professional writing a proposal, but you do not need to know all tiny things. Like you're not supposed to know all the models. so because after you get the fund, you have this permission to hire your own staff and make your research team. After making a strong research team, so you can get more than maybe 10 proposal per year. But this is the first stage is a little bit difficult. Another lesson that I learned, that really being a PI, principal investigator, and a co-PI is a big chance that we do not have this chance in our universities. So if you are giving this chance that you can be a PI or a co-PI, try not to waste chance. Try to apply as much as proposal you want. This is not like I told you, like a paper. So you can try as much as you can. So the 7th lesson that I'm learning is that if you can secure a grant, it is a key to academic community integration. So if you have a grant, so I'm sure that if you apply to any academic job, so they can easily accept you, because bring a fund is very important in the US universities. And the last lesson I learned, that try and join publication. This can help you integrate into academic community. Okay. These are the lessons I learned. So, and I have tried my best to cope with all challenges I have. I have already provided you with the links how to write your proposal and where to seek the source of funds. I would like to tell one of the best source of funds. If you know this, you don't need any other source. All the higher education funds, research funds come from this source. That is called grants.gov. So, but the grants.gov is a little bit complicated, how to register to that. I provided a presentation to SAR colleagues. They will provide you this. They will share this with you. This will tell you step by step. For example, what are the benefits, how to find a fund and how to apply for that fund, how to register. This registration takes almost like 10 days to be completed. How to register, how to download the application packages, and how to, it gives you some tips to how to submit finally your application. So all these documents are will be shared with you. Now I will come. So after you get your fund, research fund, so now you need to publish the results of this research. So I provided also a presentation. I think the time is very limited to talk about this, but I prefer, if you want to publish the result of your research, if you want to secure a job in the US universities, this is very important to publish your articles in a Web of Science or a Scopus Index journal, and the impact of the journal should be also high. Not, I mean, and don't publish your articles in worthless journal. For example, I will tell you, in ASU, if you publish a paper in MDPI, so MDPI, although it is indexed in Web of Science, but they don't consider that as a good journal. So publishing your result is also very important. So you need to create a checklist. Is this journal the right fit for my work? Don't, I mean, choose the journal if you're a new researcher into this area. Try to communicate the journal and try to get the advice from your supervisor or your colleagues. Is it read within the community? Is it indexed with the SCI or PubMed or Scopus? Is the journal a good quality? Can I trust this journal? These are very important to consider. And also, I included some slides how to draft your manuscript. So like how to do your pre-writing, how to do your drafting, how to do your revising, how to do your editing and evaluating, and how to go to the publishing process. Thank you so much. It was helpful.
Thank you, Iqbal. I think you're touching on the fact that these topics could all be covered in a lot more time individually than a 1.5 hour webinar. But I will share all of those resources afterwards. I just want to pull out a few things that I heard, which I think transitioned from the teaching component, which is that there are a lot of resources on your campuses and within your community to help learn and build out skills, whether that's something like within, courses within ASU like you experienced, or partner organizations like Upwardly Global. Obviously, there's a lot of tailoring that needs to be done, and understanding how to navigate the complex funding landscape can be challenging. So just having any insight from you and others will be helpful. One thing that I've had conversations with you, Iqbal, before about are how do you know where to publish, and how do you answer these questions that you just posed about, what's the right fit for my work, and can I trust the journal? I'm curious, Solomon, Hyundai, if you have any thoughts on those questions or anything else about, publishing in a new academic environment.
Should I tackle this or? Okay. I think if a journal is indexed in Web of Science or a Scopus, that is enough to consider as a good journal.
Yeah.
But the impact factor is important. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much, Sarina, and thank you for it as well. So here in the US, the motto in higher education institutions is publish or perish, so publishing is very, very important, and there are a wide array of journals to publish on, right? So there's no problem about where to publish, right? The question is, which one is reputable, which one is acceptable, and because there are significant differences in how journals are graded. So a person can, find out if a journal is reputable or not just with a quick, research online. There are different resources online which people can identify which publication, which journal is reputable in their field. Because journals differ from field to field as well as from time to time. How they are a journal that was reputable this year could lose its reputation next year. So it's important to keep oneself updated on that. And one more thing, as Iqbal has been trying to point out, academic positions could be mainly teaching positions or mainly research positions, and universities are divided into teaching and research universities as well. So if you are after a teaching position, publication is important, but not as important as a research position, so that should be emphasized as well. Back to you.
Hyundai, do you have any insight from working in Canada, publishing, how your recent book may impact and support your career?
Well, I think the points that Iqbal and Solomon already made are very important, in the sense that we need to be careful as to where we put our energy, because writing, publishing, those are not easy. So picking the right venue for your article, book, whatever it is very, very important. So I agree with what Solomon and Iqbal already said. And yeah, teaching intensive institutions do not necessarily put the same emphasis on publications as research institutions. So that's also something that one should be mindful of. In terms of books or edited volumes, it's always good to do research on the publishers. University presses are always the best way to go. And then after that, there are a couple of academic publishers that are fairly well known and well respected. So again, depends on one's field, but doing the research, contacting editors, asking questions, I think helps one to navigate better.
Thank you. I think there's also a lot that's come up in many of your comments about networking and the value of, having others to lean on, to ask for advice, to collaborate with. And I think maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more in the Q&A, since we've gotten some questions on that as well. But I will hand it over to you, Hande.
Thank you, Sarina, and thank you, everyone. Welcome. My name is Hande Gürses, and I am currently teaching at Capilano University in North Vancouver, Canada. So I will start by situating myself and then share my experience. So movement has been the defining feature of my life and my work as a scholar. As a scholar of literature, I have always been comfortable moving between languages, cultures, different literary genres. But then on my personal experience, I also moved between continents, countries, and different institutions. All these moves, some voluntary, others forced, allowed me to navigate different cultures, institutions, roles, and responsibilities, while also allowing me to reinvent myself in the process, losing and gaining new parts of who I am. Today, I would like to share with you some of the things that I have learned throughout my journey. So I will start by talking about searching for a job, the process of searching for a job. So for me, this has two components. The one that is outward looking, and then there is the inward looking part of the search for a job. So the outward looking part involves, first of all, combining a narrative, a story about who you are as a scholar. So we usually have different parts of our work. We do research, we teach, we have administrative responsibilities. So making sure that those different components align together to create a coherent narrative is an important part of creating a portfolio that will be successful. And to be able to have that, I think one of the most important things is to keep track of everything that one does. We all are busy with lots of responsibilities, and we may not always remember what we did last year. So I think it's very important to keep track of all the workshops that one attends, offers, the collaborations, student evaluations, course syllabi, service responsibilities. So keeping track of those, making a record of those, will make it easier to compile an application once you find a job position. And also, most of the jobs in North America will require a research statement, a teaching statement, and a diversity statement, an EDI statement. So these are not documents that one can create on one day. They require a lot of care and hard work. So I think one strategy is to have a sample for these documents ready that one can then cater towards the needs of particular applications. And of course, the third and most important part of a job search is networking, also called reaching out. This is usually one of the most challenging aspects, especially if one is new to a culture, a country, a language. But it's also the best way of meeting new people, making connections, which may lead to professional opportunities. This can be done in person, in conferences that one attends, or other events that one attends, but also done online via cold emails or social media platforms if one is using those. So cold emails, I have tried in the past, and I have had success with cold emails. What I think is important when you're sending an email to someone you haven't met before is to be concise and clear, introducing oneself clearly, highlighting the parts of your resume that might be relevant for the person you are contacting, and also asking for an initial meeting, whether it's online or in person, is important. And if one has an institutional email account, I think sending those emails from that account instead of a personal account is also adding to the response rate. Once we have a network, it's also important to maintain that network. So I also suggest keeping in touch with the people in your network, reaching out to them, keeping them updated of your progress. And the inward aspect of the job search process is building a lot of resilience and patience. The previous speakers already addressed the precarity in academia, and in North America, the competition is extremely high. So knowing those would be helpful initially. And one thing that I find is helpful in this stressful process is finding your own community based on your research interests, your teaching interests. Look to join listservs, look to join online events. And if there isn't a community, maybe think of creating one yourself, reaching out to people with whom you share research interests, organizing writing hours together or book readings together might be a good way of creating that community while you're also going through this stressful process of looking for a job. I believe Solomon already mentioned that, but identifying your strengths is very important. And for those of us who have had to take the more unconventional path in our careers, it becomes more important to see those flaws or weaknesses as strengths and changing that narrative. For me, the multiple moves that took place in my life, I now see them as immense richness that add to my expertise and experience. And also embracing the new you is an important part of building resilience in that process. You may not have the same titles, you may not have the same community, you may not have the same authority, but there will be new identities that come along the way. And it's up to you to decide how to incorporate those and what to make of those new identities as you are applying for jobs. Next, I would like to talk about the applications. So the more practical side of things, it's always important to identify the timeline of applications. Again, this is specific for jobs, countries, and your field. So you need to be able to identify when jobs are posted so you can plan ahead to collect your documents, and also where jobs are advertised. This will change also depending on country and your field. Another thing that might be helpful is to identify institutions. For example, in Canada, in addition to universities, we also have colleges that offer certificates and diplomas, which is an additional venue for scholars to look for jobs. The application usually involves a large portfolio, including resume, teaching statement, research statement, references. So it's a good idea to have in mind people who can write you reference letters, and again, keeping in touch with them, letting them know of the applications that you are submitting. And you will also need to submit a cover letter. For that, it is important to be familiar with the format that is followed in your particular field. Cover letters in academia are usually very standardized. They do not make room for innovation. So it's best to follow what is out there and write your cover letter in the proper format. And also in your application process, do not shy away from asking for help. There are online resources, digital tools, but also friends and colleagues. I did mock interviews with my friends who were willing, and also experts in the field. So if you're already in an institution, the teaching center will be a wonderful resource for you to go over your material. Also working with a career coach, I have found to be incredibly helpful for both becoming familiar with the cultural context of the country and also practicing for an interview. So if you are invited to an interview, congratulations. It is good to know that some people are good in interviews and others need to practice, and that is okay. I practiced a lot for my interviews. So if you receive questions ahead of your interview, it's always a good idea to practice with those questions. If you did not get instructions, it's also a good idea to reach out to the committee and ask them about the interview process. They might be interested in a teaching sample or ask you other questions. So feel free to reach out to the committee ahead of the interview. And when you are doing the interview, there are parts of the interview that you can control, like the setup, the room, the tech, the light. So make sure that those are in good order. And be ready to answer the question, tell us about yourselves. That's usually a tricky one because one needs to bring in a lot of different things into a coherent narrative. So be ready for that question and practice that. And also, it is helpful to do your research in terms of the institution. What are their vision? What are their plans? What kind of students prefer that institution? And also be ready to have some questions for the committee, because at the end of the interview, they will probably ask you if you have questions for them. And also be authentic, be who you are. That will be easily communicated through the interview. And lastly, I want to talk about the other side of the table, my experience as a member of the hiring committee. I have seen multiple applications. And again, the cover letter and the formatting of the documents is a very easy way of making sure that your application is being considered. So make sure that you follow the requirements of your field, of the country in which you are applying. And also when applying to multiple jobs, it's easy to upload the wrong file. So make sure that you make the adjustments and have the correct name of the institution, the names of the committee members when you're applying. That's just a very simple way of avoiding being disqualified from going further in your application. Also checking the eligibility requirements, whether that's work permits, visas, or qualifications like a degree. Make sure that your application aligns with those requirements. And in the case that you are not offered a position, it's always a good idea to ask for feedback to the committee after an interview. Most committees will welcome this request, and you will be learning the ways in which you can improve for the next time. So I know that it's an unpredictable and stressful journey looking for a job in academia, especially in the humanities. And I know that even though the results are not there yet, everything that one does during that process is a wonderful investment in who you are as a scholar. So remember that, and yeah, Thank you. I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Hande. I think there's so much to pull out, but one thing that I think is really important and sometimes overlooked is the importance of just the minutia, right? Of tailoring, making sure that things are in the right format, and I think that that is one place where your network can be really helpful, and that asking for help is really important and should not be seen as a weakness. I'm not going to speak for very long because we have limited time. But Solomon, Iqbal, is there anything that you want to add about your experiences applying for jobs before we get into the Q&A?
Thank you. I just want to add that this application package is, I think, very important, as Nda said about that. Like, especially while you're applying for a research-based job, the research statement is very important. It should be, I think if you share your research statement and teaching statement with someone like with your supervisor, with who knows like a lot about this, that would be very helpful. I think just don't directly submit your application package. Just carefully read it and share with some other people to read it. Thank you.
To add to that, working broadly, in a sense that applying, for example, for multiple positions by, tailoring each application to the requirements of each position is very important. For example, even though I was trained to be a lawyer primarily, I had to expand that to include, customary law, for example, custom and development, constitutional law, which is also connected with politics and government. So the thing is, particularly here in the United States, the hiring process is multi-stage, multi-phased. So the first thing they do is they look at your cover page, and what you need to do is to tailor, your cover page to the specific requirements of that position. So it's not it's not exaggerating your qualification. It's not you are not lying if you, for example, tailor your qualification, as I said earlier, to specific requirements of specialization is everything to the specific, for example, the position could be for you to teach a specific branch of law, a specific branch of engineering, a specific branch of something, So don't be afraid to emphasize, the whatever you have on that field. So that's what I meant by working broadly, right? And of course, I would like to warn of being too interdisciplinary. So the thing is tailoring your application to the different specific requirements of the positions for which you are applying is very important.
Yeah, I think you pulled out some good points about how it's important to apply broadly to multiple types of positions, and at multiple types of institutions, like you mentioned, Hande. One thing that you just touched on very briefly were references, and I think that that's something that is very important. And I'm going to transition us to the Q&A, but I'm going to add on to someone's question. So we heard that getting a job as a displaced scholar, it's not always about how much knowledge you have developed, but it can be about the network that you've developed, and that can be challenging. So they're asking, how can displaced scholars develop trust with host scholars? And perhaps my addition would be, and how do you develop a relationship to ask someone to be a reference on a job application?
That's a beautiful question. So the trusting part is is something very personal, right? Unfortunately, there is no formula for that. But in my experience, people have been fairly receptive and very supportive. So it comes down to how one formulates that identity, that experience, and how you're presenting it. And that's, again, a very personal decision. The level of comfort one feels when writing about it, when sharing it with colleagues. So that will have to be assessed by the individual, I would say. And then references, I have found that it's a good idea to have a large group of people from which one can pull. Scholars are very busy people, so it's not always that they have time to respond to the request for a reference. So it's a good idea to have a backup plan for the references. And also people who are already in North America, if you are applying in North America, I think that also adds strength to one's application. And if you have supervisors, if you are early in your career, of course, that would be the best way to go. But I found that collaborators would also make great references. So establishing that network with this in mind would be important. So your network is not just people who find job opportunities, but also they support you in many ways in your job applications. Yeah, I hope this.
Solomon, Iqbal, is there anything that you want to share about
Yeah.
building trust in new networks?
Yeah, but the first thing that I would like to emphasize is how important the support that institutions such as Scholars at Risk provides. The vetting process I know is very rigorous, and once a person gets an opportunity to work at a U.S. institution, for a year or two, then it's up to them to connect, to establish this network and take it from there. So the recommendation and these opportunities that connecting the placement that Scholars at Risk Network does is very, very important. That's one thing. The other thing is don't be afraid to send people, or to send professors at US universities that work in your areas, emails, send them how you are following up their work, how you are a big fan, how you have cited their work and how you are reading, their books, journal articles, how you are expanding your knowledge based on the lectures that they gave here and there, so they will respond to you, and particularly if you are working in the area, in the specific area that they work, I mean, these people may be very busy, I know, but they also like, expanding their network, beyond the confines of the American bubble, so having a colleague that they can call upon, they consider a colleague, a counterpart in Tanzania or somewhere in Asia is considered an asset even for US professors, right? So don't shy away from contacting, taking the initiative to contact those people. The other is every time you have an opportunity, for example, international conferences, and others, go talk to people, presenters, participants that have experience working in higher education institutions in the US. It is with encounters that seem innocuous, that people establish lifelong lasting networks. So take capitalize on every opportunity that you get, to establish networks and to take them further.
I just want to add one thing. This is like kind of a technique to get reference. I use this like 10 years before I applied for the American Work Water Association, a kind of volunteer job. So I've been always attending to their meetings. I have been reading their documents. I used to put my comments on these documents. So anytime if I request a recommendation letter or if I want them as reference, they accept this. I think this is a good way. Just be a part of the, have a volunteer work with some organization. They have a membership forum. You can go to that and apply. I don't know about the social science, but at least in water, like field, I know that there are lots of these kind of activities.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, this next question is in response to what you shared, Iqbal, about joining with other researchers and co-collaborators. The question was, can you elaborate a little bit on the aspect of joining a publication with other scholars for someone who might have a less developed academic network? And perhaps just how do you join someone else's research, or how do you identify co-collaborators if you're the one leading the research? Any advice that you may offer?
This from, yeah, this question. Yeah. Actually, for my case, when I want to have a joint publication, so first I will see among my colleagues who's like specialization is very similar to me and who's interested similar to my interest, and I see what I'm working on, for example, in this specific paper. Then I would ask them so politely that if you want to be like in this publication. So most of them in most cases they accept. Yeah.
Any other advice on doing joint publications?
I mean, well, I have an experience working with Brigham Young University in Utah when I was a professor at the, Addis Ababa University. I made a personal connection with a professor there, and they have a project on law and religion, and that interaction developed into, the School of Law in Provo, Utah, organizing an international conference in Addis, concerning law and religion. And participants were drawn from all over the world. And any interaction that you have would grow. For example, people, esteemed researchers, professors here in the US are pretty much interested in expanding the scope of their research. You can provide them with expertise, local expertise based in Africa, in Asia, or somewhere else. So just take the initiative to contact them to offer whatever you have to offer, and take it from there. So taking the initiative is very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I collaborated with my co-editor for one of the publications that I have, I was feeling particularly uninspired in my work, and I was trying to find a way of creating something I enjoy. So that's how I reached out to a colleague, a friend, and said, do you have any ideas? How should we find some more joy in what we're doing? And that's how the idea of a edited volume was born. And I also find it's relatively easier to maybe collaborate on panels for conferences. So proposing in humanities, the MLA or the ACLA conferences are the two big literature conferences in North America. So submitting a proposal for a panel with a collaborator would be a great way of working together, getting together, and then that panel with the submissions might easily turn into a special issue for a journal or an edited volume that will be published. So starting with a relatively smaller scale and then turning it into a more long-term commitment project would be also a good way to go.
It's a great suggestion. Okay, we have a couple questions about the length of time it takes to get a job, which obviously is subjective, but maybe each of you could tell us a little bit about sort of how much time ideally should one prepare for, preparing their materials, applying for jobs, all the, backup planning necessary. Obviously it looks different in different disciplines, in different countries, at different times of your career, but any insight that you can offer would be helpful.
I mean, if I go first, if the question is to apply for the time that takes from applying to, being informed of the final decision for a particular academic position, it could take up to 6 months. Otherwise, everything depends on the institution concerned. How urgent the position needs to be filled, the type of positions, the competitiveness of the position, the number of applicants. Because the more applicant pool they have, the longer it takes to screen out. So and one more thing that you need to do is, from my experience, particularly for people who like to go in my footsteps, in the footsteps of people like me, you should always have a backup plan, because one thing that I painfully learned is, schools may not, screen applications solely based on merit. There are quite a number of factors, that you may never know of. Therefore, rejection is part of the enterprise, part of the effort. So it could take longer, and rejection is, a real probability. So you need to have a backup plan, particularly as a person who has gone through this journey. I recommend having, considering having a side gig and stuff. I mean, the less eager, but I mean, this is my experience. The less eager I was for a position, the more progress I made, to the extent of being interviewed and stuff. When you have everything in one basket, things could be real painful, very stressful. So that's out of your control. You don't know how long it takes, for the application to be processed. Some institutions even drop you the news that they have abandoned the search process, because of, so it's out of your control. Something that you control is having, getting ready for every eventuality, and that means having a plan B, getting a side gig, having another, path in your career. So that will be very helpful, not just to give you job security, but also to strengthen even your academic career. It will have, a position which is supported by experience, real experience in real life as well, and in a way that will augment your economic position as well.
Well, if I can add to that, in the humanities, the rough timeline is that the jobs will be advertised in the fall, and then the first interviews will take place maybe early January, like December-ish, and then spring would be campus visits if the candidate moves to the next stage. So that's kind of the timeline of the actual process, hiring process. But obviously, before the jobs are posted, there's the preparation of the documents, of the portfolio, collecting the references. So one should definitely plan for those. And as I said, there are different institutions. Not all institutions are research focused. In Canada, we have colleges too. They may hire on a very short notice. They may need someone on an emergency hire. So it's also a good idea to check regularly the websites of the particular institutions that you are interested in applying. So there are community colleges that might be looking for faculty. So there are different venues for that too.
Just from my experience, because I usually apply for research-based jobs, it has usually the deadline, like when they need you. And I think for the research-based job, for teaching, I think it would be open, yeah. It takes a long time.
Great, thank you. I think, Hande, what you noted about basically the year timeline can be very challenging for many of the scholars that we work with in our network, because sometimes positions are just for 1 year. And so the idea that you have to be on campus and start planning immediately is very challenging, but also very real. And I think it's important to be aware of that. And that is just another reason to tap into a network of, colleagues in your discipline to get a sense of what that timeline really is, to really be familiarized with the system in the country and in the university, and to understand how to tailor your materials. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, so let me see. One question is, how can someone be overqualified? And if so, how do you approach reshuffling your CV? And/or I'll give you guys the option here. We have a few minutes left. What types of side gigs can give relatable experiences for academics and researchers?
But let me take that because overqualification means this is my experience, and I think some people in my position will relate to that as well. There are entry-level jobs, for people for younger people, these people are cheaper to hire, and the assumption is they will serve longer, before going to retirement and stuff, and in any case, as far as the benefits package is concerned, the younger a person is, the cheaper it is. That's the calculation. The other is, institutions would like to hire younger, more malleable, people who can be trained, who can be shaped in a way they would like to shape them. So my advice is, from my personal experience, I earned a PhD in 2015. So my first degree was in 2002. I usually emphasize, the date I earned my, because this is very important, particularly here in the US. The older you are, the less desirable you are. Unless you have a distinguished scholar, a distinguished professor, or a famed expert in the industry. So there is a concept called overqualification. They would like to train you, to acclimatize you, to shape you in their way, and of course, the younger you are, the cheaper you are in terms of the compensation package that they're required to pay. So a person could be, that's a real thing here in the US. You could be overqualified, and that's undesirable.
Yeah, I think an important note here is not to be dishonest on your materials, but to highlight different aspects of your experience that apply to the position. Because you all have so much expertise and it can't all go on depending on if it's a resume or a CV, but that's maybe for another workshop. Would anyone like to share any ideas for side gigs that might be relevant to academic careers before we wrap up?
I could share my experience. So in Canada, there is something called the Canadian experience, which makes it tricky for newcomers. So employers would usually want a Canadian experience. And of course, in order to get Canadian experience, one needs to get a job. Um, the best way to navigate that is to take the sessional, the adjuncting positions, which might be much more easily available. They do not provide job security, but they do provide the Canadian experience. And for those of us coming from different parts of the world, our qualifications or our institutions are not always as legible in our resumes. The hiring committee may not recognize the names, may not be familiar with our region or our expertise. So having those recognizable institutions in the resume, I think does make a difference. For me, coming to Canada after having been in the US, I think added a lot to my portfolio that made it a lot more accessible for the people on the hiring end, to see that I have experience in North America, if not in Canada. So that would be one way. And also most institutions would have a continuing education program. I have found that they are very receptive to scholars, faculty offering to teach in their continuing education program. This is not, um, uh, again, maybe long-term job security, but a great way to enter the institution, get to know people, establish yourself as an instructor, develop those teaching skills, and it's a wonderful experience. I continue teaching in the continuing education program, and I truly enjoy it. So I highly recommend checking those programs of the institutions as well.
Okay. All right, well, we have about 3 minutes left, so I will say a few final words. But first, I just want to thank all three of you so much for sharing your expertise. I want to thank everyone who attended for your questions and for being here in community with us. This is hopefully just the beginning of these types of webinars and external organizational resources that we'll be sharing with the network, because we know that working with SAR is only one part of continuing a career in safety, and that there are many people in different situations who are looking for a variety of resources. Today, we learned a lot about teaching, research, and applying for jobs in the United States and Canada and how they build upon each other, and just had the opportunity to learn from the three of you about your unique experiences and what helped and what was challenging. And I think I saw a lot of overlaps between the three of you, but also the unique situations that occur in different types of institutions, different disciplines, different countries. I think, in addition to teaching and researching, we heard a lot about networking and the value of networking, the importance of tailoring your materials, the importance of asking for help, and, just understanding your strengths and how they, your differences are strengths and bring out so much more for you and for those that are around you. And I guess last but not least, we could have spent so much time on each of your experiences and each of your expertise. But there's only so much time that someone wants to sit in the webinar. So thank you for sharing what you did today. After this webinar is over, I will end the recording. I'll send out an email to all attendees with the recording, with all of the resources that Iqbal prepared for you, and perhaps some notes and some links that may be helpful. But I just want to thank you all again, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Thursday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's say bye-bye.